ASMR Coffin Radio.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Coffin Radio. I am Heartthrob Rob, and today we are reviewing Darkside of the Ring, Season 3, Episode 1, Brian Pillman. Crazy episode we have here, man. A lot of stuff I thought I knew about Brian, but apparently I didn't know enough. But another amazing episode here from the producers of Darkside of the Ring. They know their stuff, man. They deep dive into all this. I love these 2-hour specials. There's a lot more meat on the bone than there is just for a 1-hour episode. But this one's crazy, man. Brian starts, he starts off as a football player for the Cincinnati Bengals. And, he doesn't quite make it all the way to, where he wants to be with that. So he ends up actually going to Stampede Wrestling, where, he's helped train along with the Hearts and gets his time in and stews, in the Heart Dungeon, which is pretty crazy. After a while, he actually gets a job with WCW, and this is where we kind of see more of the talking heads and the people that are talking about him in this episode. We got quite the team here. We have his ex-wife, Melody. I think it's his widow, actually, and it's Melanie, excuse me. We have Steve Austin, which he does incredible. It's so weird to see him in not a WWE capacity here. We have Jim Cornette, who I absolutely love, especially on these documentaries. And then we have his son, Brian Pillman Jr., and then the rest of the family as well. But Brian Pillman Jr. really stands out here, the widow, and then Brian's aunt, from his stepmom. Just the whole family, the whole dynamic of this episode really is that Brian kind of didn't have the best family life. He kind of had 3 baby mamas, I think, at the time. And, the lady that he kind of ends up being with, maybe they were dabbling in and out of drugs, or maybe she was a little bit more, perhaps. And actually, Brian's second baby mama, I think, ends up committing suicide based on something that his new wife had told the mom. So it's like just this bad juju that's going along early, like 90s, mid-90s, when Brian's navigating through life here. He gets a job with WCW. He gets at the tag team with Steve Austin as the Hollywood Blondes, and they're just no plans for them really, but they're able to get themselves over and do what they do. But even as they get themselves over, WCW doesn't know what to do with them. They don't draw a rating for Great American Bash, I believe, or Clash of the Champions, so they end up breaking them up. As Brian's going through all that baby mama drama. He decides that, on his way out, he's going to just try this loose cannon gimmick. That's when he comes up with the Bobby Heenan thing. He's wrestling Eddie Guerrero, and he grabs Bobby Heenan kind of by the back of his jacket, and Bobby Heenan's like, what the fuck? And I mean, if you can break Bobby Heenan, who's the goat of all goats, you're going to get a lot of publicity. So that's another infamous moment. Obviously, when he's wrestling Kevin Sullivan, he tells him, I respect you, Booker Man. Just stuff like that. And on his way out, he gets out of his contract by hitting up Bischoff and says, look, I know you can pay me $250 right now, but I'm trying to get $400. And Bischoff says, go somewhere else, get yourself more valuable, and I'll come back and sign for that. So Brian's able to get his contract out, and he tells, Bischoff that he's going to go somewhere else. And with this, 3-card, 3-ring circus that we're able to do in wrestling at the time, where you could hit up, if you're not hot in WCW, you go to WWF, you go to ECW, or vice versa. Wherever you're not hot, go get yourself over somewhere else and come back. As he's trying to get into, he goes into ECW, plays some crazy things there. He almost pisses on the ring and cusses a whole bunch and just hits people, hits plants, does some really good stuff here. He plays a rib on Vince, and he's able to get a picture with Vince at a fucking signing expo, which is absolutely hilarious to play a rib on Vince and get away with it. But Vince sees him and goes, fuck it, let's sign him. But just as he's getting signed, boom, car accident, man. And Brian really fucks his life up a little bit here. Fell asleep behind the wheel and really tears his ankle a new one and ends up in a coma for a week. His face is really bad. He's kind of just maybe overdoing his pain medication just a little bit too much here. As he's getting better after the surgery and takes care of his foot, they put Brian Pillman and Austin, his former tag team partner, as rivals, and they do the infamous. First off, they do the chair gimmick. You know what I mean, where they stamp in this fool's chair. They call it Pillmanizing now. And then we get to the Brian got a gun angle. And if you're not aware of how they were doing shit in 96, that was absolutely crazy. Maybe even early 97 with the Pillman got a gun. Austin goes to Pillman's house, and Pillman says, when Austin 316 meets Brian's 9mm Glock, blah, blah, and fucking they shoot a gun on TV, dude. Something that they would never let happen now. So it's just crazy, crazy shit. unfortunately, after that, Bryan is still injured and not working as many matches as he would like, and they put him on the commentator. There's a lot of talk going around, is he or isn't he on pills? And, as Jim Ross tells him he has to take another drug test, Bryan's like, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me, So it's very sad to see someone go off a little bit. And unfortunately, on Bad Blood 1997, the pay-per-view, that's when Bryan is found, in a hotel room, and they don't know if he's overdosed or, it turns out actually that he had heart disease, something with his heart. I can't exactly remember, but it wasn't from an overdose. And they have his wife up there, that Melanie or lady, they have her, and she's talking about drug overdoses and how it's, people got to watch out. And it's like, lady, you're making a statement when you don't even know how your husband died. So she's not a good person either. They really got to go into this family life, Brian Pillman Jr. kind of really has it really rough, and the rest of the family, because they're left with this woman who's maybe living a fast life that was expecting to have things come to her a little bit easier. So they say that she kind of blows through the money, as she's in here. She's looks like she's definitely lived some hard times, So, but the kids are doing great now. Brian Pillman's fucking doing great on his wrestling career. We see him on AEW. He's also on MLW. But just to know that, he's doing his father right, and that, he's like going through some things here, and he's had not the greatest life. And for him to come bounce back and do all that, like, especially when your father who he is, like, it's very cool to see him turn this all around, man. But Brian Pillman Jr., the superstar here in this episode of this Brian Pillman episode, season 1 episode of season 3, episode 1 of season 3. It was really good in here, man. I loved it. I really liked it. But let me know what you guys think about it. We'll talk about it in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. And if you like what you're watching, then hop in the coffin. Follow us on social media at Coffin Radio. Coffin is spelled with a K. And that's all for today.
ASMR Coffin Radio.